There is no off season in Dynasty Fantasy Football, and here we are on the precipice of another NFL Combine. And that means one thing. It's mock draft season. Joining me today is Heath Cummings from CBS Sports, and we're going to do a first round mock draft. We're going to do it with a little bit of a twist. We're going to talk more about the strategy of whether you take the pick or trade the pick than we are the pick itself. And that's next on Dynasty Compass. Welcome to Dynasty Compass. I am your host, Jeff Blaylock, the other Jeff B. from Football Guys. I am joined today by Heath Cummings from CBS Sports to do a little one-round mock draft and talk about some draft strategy. Heath, thank you for joining and welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me on. Looking forward to it.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Let's just jump in, man. Let's talk about this draft class as a whole, and then we can start getting into the mock draft itself. Let's just start with, kind of overall, the holistic picture of the draft. I've been hearing and reading that this class is relatively weak compared to some of the other classes. Do you share that view? And where would you rank it among the recent classes we've had and this upcoming prospective 2027 class?
Near the bottom. Yeah, I mostly agree with the idea that it's a down year for rookie drafts. I think there might be a few points of distinction. I wouldn't necessarily say it's a down year for wide receivers in comparison to recent years. Now, there's not quite a number one like there will be next year with Jeremiah Smith, but still, it's a good wide receiver class, probably weak everywhere else, but there are 4, 5, maybe 6 guys at the top that I think could compare well with the tops of rookie classes. So maybe top heavy in that, not that it's necessarily better than the other classes at the top, but it's at least equal to the other classes at the top. And then the fall off at this point, at least, seems pretty severe. I'm still hopeful that we get through the combine, we get some draft capital, and there's maybe 2 or 3 more guys that you really feel good about as first round picks. But for now, I'd say definitely towards the bottom in terms of comparing it to other classes with a decent top end.
It seems to me too that we do have these sort of clear QB1, QRB1, a clear QB1, clear RB1, clear tight end one in Mendoza, Love, and Sadiq. But the wide receiver class could be anywhere. Any of several guys could be that one. I think right now I sort of look at 3 being the top, and then there's 2 or 3 or 4 others that are in that next tier. But that tier could be easily 5 or 6 different players as well. Is that kind of your vision as well for this wide receiver class? No clear top, but there is some level of top people.
Yeah, and I think that the difference is at quarterback, running back, and tight end, we have some good prospects, but part of the reason that there's such a clear number 1 is because there's not a number 2 there to compete with them. Where at wide receiver, we have 3 guys who you could legitimately make the argument for as the wide receiver 1 in the class, and they're all very talented.
This is one of those years, I think, that if you're a QB needy superflex team, this probably is not the year for you unless you just happen to be holding the 101. We've already established there's not really a clear 2 here. Is there any hope at all beyond Mendoza in this class, or would you be punting this position if you're not holding 101 and you need a
Yeah, I think the only argument I would have with that idea is I'm not sure you're going to need 101. I think there's a chance that you get Mendoza at 102 and maybe even at 103, because there are people who just don't think he is a real difference maker at the quarterback position, and there are difference makers at running back and wide receiver. But yes, if I'm on the clock and I need a quarterback and Mendoza's gone, I'm probably not taking another quarterback in this draft unless we've gotten to round 2 or round 3 and we just want to throw a dart. Listen, the NFL gets things wrong all the time, so maybe one of these guys becomes at least a low-end QB2, but I'm not excited about any of their quarterbacks in this class.
If you're not holding one of these top, 4, 5, 6, 7 picks, maybe even 2 picks, is this also just a year to be punting generally, or are there enough gems out there that there's value to be had at 108, 109, 110? And we'll certainly get into that as we get into the back half of our mock draft. But just as a
this
general
all
point.
comes down to the perception of your league. Like, we don't want to just give these later round picks away, or these later first round picks away, if we're not going to get good value. And if the consensus amongst everyone is that the back half of the first round's not any good, then maybe you can't get anything for it, and you might as well just throw some darts. I think you said it. There are some wide receivers who profile as nice tier 2 options in this class, and whichever ones your favorite are, throwing a dart at those guys in the back half of the first round makes some sense. And then I think there's some other running backs in the class that, while they aren't necessarily profile as feature backs or as 3-down backs, we see all the time day 3 backs make an impact as a rookie. So if I can't get anything for those second round picks anyways, I'm okay with targeting some of those running backs and hoping they end up with a bigger workload than we're projecting.
Yeah, it's certainly the case that, not every year's 105 is the same. Not every year's 101 brings the same value. But we were looking toward 2027 in particular. There seems to be a lot of potential value there,
right,
and that those picks, that 108 may be worth quite a bit more than the 108 is this year. Is that your sense as well?
Yes. Yeah. And I think, like, when we do this exercise, I may be trying to see if I can get a first round pick as soon as I get past, if I can turn any of the mid 2026 firsts into a 2027 first, I'm going to be happy to do that.
All right. Well, let's just dive in then to our mock draft. Now, in a typical one of these kinds of mock draft shows, we would just alternate picks back and forth and snipe each other and debate the merits of why we chose somebody, where we chose them. But we're going to do this one just a little bit differently, in that Heath is going to be on the clock for every single pick. But that doesn't mean that Heath is going to be making a pick at every selection. He may choose to do that, or he may choose to trade them away. And so what we're really trying to get at today is sort of that strategic balance or difference between taking the pick or trading them. If Heath decides to take the pick, he'll select a player. If he decides to trade the pick, then I will be the one making that selection. We will move through from 101 to 112, really kind of getting into that strategic discussion of, do you pick or do you punt? And so that will be where we go. Heath, you are on the clock for the 101. This is a Superflex 12-team Dynasty rookie draft.
So I think the one place where you might consider trading this pick is if you have a rebuilding team and you already have quarterbacks. So I've talked about this a lot, but I think when you're going through that rebuilding process, you want to solve the quarterback position, you want to solve the wide receiver position, then we start worrying about running backs. If you're pretty early in a rebuild and you don't really have a need for Mendoza, then I think trading out of this pick. But I'm thrilled with either Love or Mendoza early in this draft. And if I'm just talking in a vacuum where I don't know what I need, then I'm actually going to go with Jeremiah Love, simply for the reason that I think he moves into my dynasty running back rankings close to RB6 or 7 as soon as he's drafted. I don't put the rookies in there until after the draft happens, but he's going to be a top 6, maybe 7 running back in the dynasty running back rankings, and has a chance to jump into the top 3 really fast. Like, if he hits the ground running, unlike Ashton Genty last year, and Ashton Genty is still a top 5 dynasty back for me, I think he's probably more of a difference maker and carries more value through that rookie year than Mendoza, who I have not very many questions about whether Mendoza can be a quarterback in this league, but I do have significant questions about whether he can be a difference maker for dynasty purposes.
Yeah, I think I agree with you on that. It's really kind of a question of how desperate you may be at quarterback in terms of whether you want to spend this pick on this player. I had Dave Kluge on the show a few weeks ago and asked him point blank if Love was, quote unquote, that good. And his response was, yes, he's that good. Next question, please.
Yeah, I think he has both the high end upside because of his physical traits and abilities, but also the floor of, kind of like Genty, being able to pretty much do everything that you would ask for a running back to do. I don't think we have to worry about him ending up in a situation where he doesn't provide the value that he should, because he can handle just about any responsibility you want to give a running back. So it's a good combination of both upside and floor.
Heath, you said you don't include the rookies in your dynasty rankings until after the draft. I am compelled to do that beforehand. I didn't used to, but in my role now at Football Guys, I do. And I typically discount rookies a lot in my early rankings. For example, Ashton Genty was not in my top 12 to start last season. He was down lower than that. And I have Love at RB7 right now. So that gives you an indication that I actually think he is exactly what he's coming as advertised, and is that, as you say, difference maker at all the different levels that you would ask a running back to play. So Jeremiah Love, 101, Heath on the clock, 102.
Yeah, I'll because this is a super flex format, right? So I'll go ahead and take the quarterback next. Again, I think that Mendoza gives you a pretty nice floor in terms of his ability to play the position at an acceptable level, to where he gets that multiple year runway to see if he can become truly special as a quarterback. I love the fact that he's going to be paired up with Clint Kubiak. I think that will really help his early career efficiency. And hopefully they also find him a wide receiver to go with Brock Bowers. But I'll take Mendoza at the 102, probably the best guy in this draft for just like guaranteeing that you store that value for the next 2 years. Because I don't think his value is probably going down too much those first 2 years.
Yeah, I mean, even a player like Kenny Pickett still gave you about 60 starts before he started to disappear from team starting lineups. You know, I see Mendoza kind of as a Matt Ryan type. Really, he's great between the ears, which I think is one of the hardest things to coach in a player. Tremendous leadership and character. You know, he's a great culture guy, selfless kind of teammate. I don't think that Mendoza is a high ceiling kind of guy, but he's a very steady sort of QB2 in a superflex environment, and he's going to give you years of that level of production with the occasional flourish, I think. So he's the kind of not, if you're banking on him to be your QB1, you're going to have the number 1 overall pick next year and can get a different quarterback then. But I think if he's your QB2, you'd be pretty satisfied with Mendoza.
Absolutely.
I have a feeling we're moving into wide receiverville here, but maybe
we are 100% moving into wide receiverville. This is an interesting, the way you've set this exercise up. I've been trying to think about how I want to handle this, because the truth of the matter is, if I have the 103 and the draft starts like this one did, and all 3 wide receivers are left, I think the first call I'm making is saying, does the guy with the 105 have a strong preference amongst these next 3 wide receivers? And if they do, can I pick up some draft equity to let them make the choice for me? So I'm going to go ahead and let you make the choice as far as who goes first amongst these 3 wide receivers. And I'll just pick up the extra draft capital and move down to pick 5.
That's very smart. I kind of like sometimes to let the universe tell me what I'm doing, and that the 105 seems to be a great spot for that, because these other 2 guys will be done, whichever 2 they are, and you'll get the other one if you want him. It depends on what day of the week it is as to which one of these guys I happen to see as the wide receiver 1, and today I happen to see that as being Carnell Tate from Ohio State. So I'm going to take him at 103. He's had the good fortune or the ill luck of playing opposite Marvin Harrison Jr., Emeka Egbuka, and now next year's presumptive wide receiver 1, Jeremiah Smith. I think if it weren't for that, and for an injured calf he had hampered him a little bit last year, he might have separated himself from these other guys in this class. Definitely in the first tier either way. Great downfield, a Z-type receiver, but he knows when to come back to the quarterback and help them out when they're on the run. Good at contesting catches, good at tight coverage. You need yards after the catch, he can do it. I still say, though, I think his ceiling is probably as an elite wide receiver 2. I think he's going to struggle if he were pushed to be a team's wide receiver 1, particularly the teams that may be picking in this range. If they're looking for him to be that wide receiver 1, I think his on-ramp might be a little difficult, but I do see a lot of value coming from him in the future. And I don't know that he's a surer bet necessarily than these other 2, but I have concerns about the next 2 guys who are in this tier of wide receiver that at least today, Tate would be my choice at 103.
If I would have had to have made a selection at 3, I probably would have taken Tate too. Right now I'm kind of going back and forth between him and Mekhi Lemon as my wide receiver 1 in the class. So I'll take Lemon with the 4th pick. I think he may have the highest floor of the group and be the most likely to be a guy who really excels in PPR and earns a lot of targets. And that doesn't mean that he can't go down the field. Also, he has the ability to do that. So maybe the most likely to be a wide receiver 2, but I like Tate's chances just a little bit better of having a couple of wide receiver 1 seasons, especially if he has a couple of gets with a good quarterback and has a couple of those big touchdown seasons, which Tate could really thrive in that area. Yeah. But I'd go with if Tate's off the board, then I'll take Mekhi Lemon.
Hey, yeah, I love the pick, and just watching Lemon's tape, he's got good hands, very, very few drops. He's going to be a trusted target. But one of the things I noticed in watching it that I don't really see in a lot of college running or wide receivers rather is he does try to get both feet in bounds on a catch if he's on the sideline, even though he only has to get one in by college rules. And I think that kind of sideline awareness is an extra, 3 or 4 or 6 catches per season. I see kind of as an Amon-Ra, St. Brown type role. If he can get that, then I think Lemon's got a really high floor and a potentially very high ceiling for him.
Absolutely. And then I think 5's probably the easiest pick in the draft. We'll just go ahead and take Jordan Tyson because that's who's left of the 3 wide receivers. And another guy, I think similarly with Lemon, is that he does have a good floor. I don't think he's going to bust out. I don't think he's going to end up in one of those situations where he's only getting 80 targets. I'm not sure that he has I think he's 3rd in terms of ceiling between these 3 wide receivers. And that's why he generally falls to 3rd when it comes to my rankings as well. But still a much bigger difference between Lemon and between Tyson and anybody on the left than between Tyson and the 2 receivers who went before him.
You concerned at all about Tyson's injury history? I mean, he's missed games every season, including an entire season when he had that trifecta of knee ligament tears at the end of 2022. That contributing to him being 3rd for you? Is that a worry for you, or is this he's so much better than the others right now, this is who I'm taking at 5?
I think it's more the latter, but also when it comes to injury history in college, I'm probably a bit more dismissive of that than when they move to the NFL. So I'm gonna give him a little bit of grace there, but I do think that even if you discount for the injuries, he's still the pretty clear choice to be the wide receiver 3.
Yeah, I think so as well, at least at this point. It will be interesting, I think, once we get to the combine. We are recording this episode before the combine happens. If somebody gets that sort of those eyeballs on them that can vault them up into this group and potentially push Tyson down one more spot. Right now, I'm not sure who that would be, but we will see if that person might be at 106. Heath, you are on the clock for that selection.
Much like the 103, if I have the 106 at this point, I am shopping. I'd be happy to turn the 106 into a 2027 first. I'd be happy to move back 3 or 4 spots and take somebody from this next tier of players, but not making the first choice. So I'll go ahead and trade the 106 to you.
Are there any kind of current players that you might be in the market for too here if you were going to make that kind of a swap, or is this just pure draft capital that you were looking for?
I think if I'm 106 and I'm competitive, then I'd be certainly looking to find, I mean, it depends on the position that you need, obviously. You'd take just about any starting quarterback that you think is going to be starting for the next 2 or 3 years. I'd like to look for a wide receiver in that low end wide receiver 2 range. And I'd feel pretty good targeting somebody in that range at this point. Maybe you could see if you could get a Jalen Waddle or a Devontae Smith or somebody who's still young, but hasn't quite performed to the level of upside that we expected from when they were drafted.
I think Waddle would be kind of a fascinating bet here. And even with that uncertainty, probably a more reliable bet than these receivers would be for that level of production because he's got that history of doing it with subpar quarterbacking play.
Well, I'm just waiting to see who your pick is.
Well, I'm going to take the guy who I think might be the one that vaults into the top 3 among wide receivers. I'm going to choose Denzel Boston out of Washington. He's kind of an ex-receiver straight from Central Casting. He's about 6'4", 209, 210, strong. He's tough. He's explosive. What I'm really excited about for him is that I think he is a big, reliable red zone kind of target. So I could see some touchdowns coming his way. I think in a similar vein to Tate, who I took earlier, Boston's kind of had to wait behind other players and be overshadowed by Rome Odunze, and then somewhat to a lesser extent, Jalen McMillan and Jalen Polk. But I do see him as having a super high ceiling because of that red zone potential. I'd be willing to take that chance here if I had traded traded to get this pick from you. It's going to be Boston. I think he is a little behind the top three, but a little ahead of the next group of wide receivers that I see as more or less indistinct.
Yeah, I think his upside belongs maybe with the top three. Like there's all types of good upside. It's just you worry about, does he end up in that X role where I think it's Matt Harmon calls it the sacrificial X, where he's just always stuck running up and down the sidelines, and he's always stuck with a corner right in his hip pocket, and he's not in a lot of those in-breaking routes. And then he may be a player that's more valuable to his NFL team than a fantasy football team.
I do have that concern, is that he is probably going to be one of the easier players to just take off the board if that's what a defense wants to do. They just force that quarterback to go somewhere else, and he runs his 54 routes and has 2 targets and 1 catch. Hopefully it's a touchdown. That is a concern. That's a concern with the X's is you can rub them out if that's really the idea. So halfway through the draft, we've got Love at 1, Mendoza at 2. Then the wide receiver show begins with Carnell Tate, Mekhi Lemon, Jordan Tyson, and then now Boston, who I just selected at 6. We're going to keep the wide receiver train going, Heath, or are you going to punt this decision to me to see if I keep it going? You're on the clock for the 107.
I'm not sure you're going to have to take him quite this early, but if you have the 107, I'm also not sure that you can move down and comfortably get him. So I'm going to go ahead and take Kenyon Sadiq, the tight end out of Oregon. Not unlike Boston, I think the upside for a tight end with his athleticism and playmaking ability is extreme, and it's intoxicating. And also there is some risk that he ends up being one of those tight ends that plays 55% of the snaps and doesn't give us quite what we think he should based on his athletic profile. I think the blocking concerns may be a little bit overrated for Sadiq. I do think he can stay on the field a little bit more than somebody like a Dalton Kincaid. And he has the athletic ability and the after the catch ability to just post some really huge numbers. I don't want to miss on this guy, even if 107 might be just a little bit early.
Yeah, I mean, dude is a freak, right? I mean, he's all muscle. He's 6'3", 245. I think I read a report that he put 30 pounds of muscle on in his last 2 years at Oregon. I agree. He's blocking. He's decent. He's going to struggle against some of the better top defensive ends in the league, but I agree with you. Ceiling's very high. I don't see this as a reach. If you had traded this pick and left it for me to select, I would have selected Sadiq without really a lot of hesitation here. I think he has that. He's probably the difference maker in this class if there is going to be one at tight end. I think it's Sadiq.
So was that 7?
That's 7. We are to 108.
I think we're at the end of another tier, so I'll go ahead and make one more pick, and then we'll see if I make any more in the last 4. But, I'll go and take Casey Concepcion, wide receiver, and really again the end of a tier here. My 5th favorite wide receiver out of Texas A&M was a very early breakout with a standout freshman campaign. He's produces yak at an incredible rate, and I think has the ability to do some things downfield as well. And so if we've got a 3 wide receiver tier, then I think we've got a 2 wide receiver tier here for tier 2 at this position, and I'll go ahead and take him.
Yeah, a big play waiting to happen, right? I think it's a great pick, Heath. He would probably have been my choice here as well if I had been selecting. I think that's probably 108, and we may find out that 108 is sort of the floor of the top tiers of this draft. But I think Concepcion belongs there. He also kind of one of those guys I think that could leak into the top 3 wide receivers depending on the combine. And, of course, also where he lands. He's also at that point, I think, in the NFL draft where he could land with a really, really good team, like a Kansas City kind of team that could make him into an instant star, where some of the other guys we talked about may be on teams that are still rebuilding or have quarterback issues and may not be able to have that same instant instant on switch that Concepcion might have, depending on where he
100%.
Now we're in the let's debate whether we're trading and what we might trade for, and I bet we got a wider net of what those things might be as we move into the bottom third.
Yeah, it's kind of like I want to make the first 5 picks. I want to see if I can deal 6, 7, 8 for that 2027 first, and then I get to pick 9. I'm like, okay, does anybody want this pick? Jeff, do you want this pick? Jeff, please take this pick.
Yeah, I will take it because that's the ground rules of the game. I hope at 9 that somebody fell in love, somebody drafting 1 through 8 fell in love with somebody we haven't talked about yet. And so, Boston Sadiq or Concepcion drops into this position because at this point, lots of ranges of outcomes here. At 109. Let's before I stumble into whichever one I'm going to pick, you have what you want for 109. What are you willing to take in terms of like a 2027 pick to get out of this position?
That's the difficult thing because I don't know that anybody's going to give you a 27 first for this pick unless you have like maybe the team that won it last year, or a team that really thinks they're a true contender. So they think they're going to be picking 11 or 12 next year, and they just want to add something they think can help them right now. Like that would be the ideal target, is find somebody that thinks they have a very late 2027 first and then hope it doesn't turn out to be as late as they think it's going to be. Right. I would also say if I'm one of those teams that's a contender, I'm not taking that risk because I don't want to risk accidentally trading away a top 5 or 6 pick in 2027 for this pick. But that'd be the first place I'd look. After that, I think you pretty much have to go to veterans. Hopefully, if you have I think where you're in a really bad spot is if you're in a rebuild and this pick at 9 or 10 or 11 in this draft is one that you've traded for. Because if you're a contender, it's easier to say, okay, I'm going to take an older vet that maybe doesn't have quite as much dynasty value as this pick, but will help me win now. It's much more difficult. I wouldn't take 2 seconds. Like it's not that bad, but I might consider a 27 second and like a 28 first. So ideally I think you'd be getting a very late 27 first.
Yeah, I think you're right, and that 27 first might actually get you more value at a player at that point than 109 is here. I mean, we're talking like 110, 111,
right?
With a deeper class, like you're already better off than selecting here. So I will now make my selection. I'm going to take Jadarian Price, the other running back from Notre Dame, and I will take him. Not so much because I think he's going to be this huge difference maker, but I do think that he's got some elite traits in his burst and his ability to move. He's got Kenneth Walker style patience. He's good at absorbing the contact, but he's going to get stuffed a lot. I think I don't see him as being able to like plow through or over people. But once through the line, if he could get past it, he could be gone. He's got that kind of speed. He's not a receiving threat, unfortunately. He just had 15 career receptions. 3 of them were touchdowns, though. So this is a 2-down back, solid sort of change of pace guy. And if you're in a league that's got kickoff return yards, he led the FBS in that category last year, and that was without the dynamic kickoff rules. College still plays with the old rules. So if you've got that kind of a league, this is another sort of upside play. So I'm kind of thinking in terms of the 2 or 3 leagues I'm in that have special teams points going to the players, that I think makes Price a little more valuable than he might be otherwise as a 2-down back who's not going to catch any passes.
Yeah, I will. I'll just go ahead and take another running back at 10, and this might be a little earlier than some people have him, but Emmett Johnson is a guy who I think the things that he's good at are being a professional rusher of the football, and that's going to extend the chances that he gets to improve his pass blocking. And if the pass blocking improves, this could be a guy who actually is one of the 3-down backs that comes out of the 2026 class because he has shown an ability to catch the football. It's just we know in the NFL, catching the football is only part of playing on passing downs. You also have to be good at pass protection, and it may take him a little while to figure that out. But I do think he'll have an early downs role. I do think he could have some success in short yardage in the NFL. And so this is a guy who maybe starts off as a high-end flex or something for you in his rookie season, but has if he can just fix the flaws in his game, has the potential to be a guy that maybe a team has on the field for 70% of snaps.
Yeah, I think some people might see this as a reach today. I don't think they'll think that in about a month or so. I think Coleman has that, or Johnson rather, has that ability to sort of get up into that top tier discussion, not to the Jeremiah Love level. He's head and shoulders above the rest of this class. But I think in terms of who that next guy might be, particularly as you see in PPR formats, if you can catch the ball, assuming you can at least chip the guy rushing where you're standing first, then I think there's a lot of value to be had there. He is going to have to learn some pass blocking, and that is going to take some time. So if you're looking for instant on, I think flex is the right thinking here. He's going to give you some production. He's not going to be your RB1 or RB2. And if he is, then you're looking at a high round draft pick next year and can fix the problem then.
100%.
So that takes us through 10. That is Love, Mendoza, Tate, Lemon, Tyson, and Boston in our top 6. Kenyon Sadiq at 7, Concepcion at 8. I took Jadarian Price at 9, our second running back off the board. You took the third one in Johnson at 10. We're now at 111. More running backs. Are we switching positions? Or are you punting this one away and hoping
I did you a solid by making a pick at 11, I think. We're going to go ahead and trade 11, or making a pick at 10. We'll go ahead and trade 11 back to you.
Yeah. All right. I that's very good. I appreciate that. If I am at this point, and I'm hopefully a contending team, and this is my first pick, and I am pretty well situated across the board. And if that may be the case, then to me, this is a choice of, am I going to take someone like a Ty Simpson, a quarterback who has the potential of being a starter, is probably a spot starter in terms of injuries, kind of a Mac Jones type of player, or do I keep the running back train going? So I'm going to go with Katron Allen, the running back here at 11, and I kind of see a lot of Nick Chubb in him. I mean, he's the fat man. That's his moniker. So kind of what else do I need to say? He's not really any fat on him, but he is thick and he's stocky. He left Penn State as their all-time leading rusher, and that says a lot because Penn State has produced some really outstanding rushers. He's averaged at least 5 yards a carry every year. If I am a contending team, I think he's somebody I'm willing to take. If I want to take a chance on a quarterback who may play for me sometimes, Simpson or Nussmeier may make some sense here, but I like Allen. And then the next batch of wide receivers, to me, too many question marks I'd want to take right now, unless I were just really desperate.
Yeah, I'll swing for one of those question marks with the 12th pick, and fully recognizing that you do have to be a little bit desperate, but you have to be a little bit desperate to have hope in most of the players left at this point in the 2026 class. And so I'll go with Chris Brazell, just because if you're going to throw a dart with the 12th pick, why not throw it at a 6'5" wide receiver who makes incredible plays down the field and hope he can turn into a more complete wide receiver. I think it's a very low floor type pick. This type of what guy is generally a round 2 wide receiver, but I think it just kind of speaks to the state of the 2026 class that you get to this point. I want to swing on upside. If Simpson gets taken in the first 45 picks in the NFL draft, or in the first round for sure, then he probably has to go here just because it's a round 1 quarterback. But I'm not super excited about Simpson either, so I'll go with the lanky high upside wide receiver.
Yeah, that I think you bring up a great point on when Simpson gets taken in the draft. If he's a first round pick, I think I would probably have leaned more toward him when I last selected than I did in punt here. So I think Brazell's a really good pick here. So let's go back through. We've got our first round here. We have Jeremiah Love at 101 and Mendoza at 102 for the reasons that you picked. You picked both of those guys. I assume you're content with that as the alignment, Love and then Mendoza. Yep. Then we have Carnell Tate. I chose at 3 to take the first stab at this trifecta of receivers, Lemon and Tyson. You took at 4. I think if we did this show next week, we might rearrange those, and then the next week we might rearrange
changes
them
a lot.
again.
Yes.
We may rearrange them several times between now and then, but I think our thought process here was pretty good, and I believe you would have kind of kept them. I know you've kept Lemon and Tyson in that order because you picked them. I think you said
Tate would be number one for me right now, and I think like even to that point, I'm going to have however many rookie drafts that I have. If I have 3 or 4 picks in that 3 through 5 range, I'm probably going to have one of each of those guys. Like I'm not, there's not enough of a difference for me to load up on one of them in 4 or 5 rookie drafts.
Yeah, I actually have in one draft the 3 through 5.
Oh, there you go. Just take all 3.
I may not have to make a choice as to who goes first because it doesn't matter. I may just take all of them. So we'll see. But I think, there's, these could be some boom bust kinds of guys. I think the chance of any one of them being the guy is low, but of one of the 3 of them is probably extraordinarily high, that we're going to talking about a low end dynasty wide receiver 1, upper end wide receiver 2, potentially for ceiling, certainly middle of wide receiver 2. Which one?
Right.
Well, I guess we'll see.
That's exactly right.
After those guys, I went ahead and took Boston at 6. He is kind of, I think, just on the edge of this next group of receivers. That includes Concepcion, who you took at 8, and Brazel, who you took at 12. Any concerns on Brazel, being a Tennessee product? Tennessee has not produced the most elite NFL-ready talent over the past few years. Is that a streak you're afraid continues, or you think this one's gonna his upside's worth the risk that he's gonna be just yet another Tennessee product?
I don't worry too much about the particular schools and what players from there in the past have done, but at the same time, I don't see very much floor with Brazel. It's entirely a ceiling pick.
Yep. If going back to our draft, Kenyon Sadiq is the only tight end taken at 7. Is there any other tight end you would have considered at 11 or 12, or is that a totally second round decision after
Yeah, not just a second round, but probably a middle of the second round. So I would say we probably have to get to pick 16 or 17 before I start thinking about another tight end.
Good. Concepcion comes in at 8. We had some running backs in a row: Jadarian Price, Emmett Johnson, and Katron Allen. I had the first and last of those. You had the one in the middle. If you had been forced at 9 to choose, would you have chosen? Would you still have chosen Johnson, or would you have taken somebody? Would you have taken Price or somebody else?
I would have taken Emmett Johnson at 9, although I'd be trying really hard to trade that pick first.
Yep. Yeah, you're kind of hoping somebody has fallen in love with somebody and they won't be around when they come up at pick, 208 or something, and maybe they'll trade you for it. And then we just talked about Brazel at 12 being, a ceiling guy, not much floor. And I think that says a lot about where we are with this class, right? We are making ceiling plays at this level of the draft, even if we're uncomfortable spending a first round pick on that. That's basically, you have that, or you have the sort of 2, first and second down back grinder kinds of running backs. That sort of seems to be where we are in these last 3 or 4 or 5 picks of the draft.
That's
probably why we're looking at 2027, right?
That's exactly right. Yeah, it's 5 players you're really excited to draft, 3 players you're kind of excited to draft, and then you just start shooting for upside.
Yeah. I'm certainly not excited about anybody I took 9 through 12. I'm much more excited about the people who went 1 through 8. I think you are as well. And that's part of the conundrum of Dynasty. But it's also, if you're a contending team, that's probably where you are, is 9 through 12. Right. And so, I think your message is pretty clear. It's you bet on upside here.
Right. Either that, or you try to find some way to move up, or better yet, finding a veteran that's going to help you this year and let somebody else make the pick.
What would let's say you did want to move up. You had this 9 through 12, and you were looking at, say one of those receivers at 3 through 5. What are you willing to spend in addition to this 9 through 12 pick to get up there?
I think most likely to get into the top 5, if you're outside of the top 8, then you may be looking at 2 additional first round picks. So you got to give up your late first, and then you've got to give up because listen, there may be some people who disagree with all the things that we've said, but we've just talked about the significance and the teardrop after the top 5 and then again after pick 8. And I think people are not going to want to give those top 5 players up. Maybe you could get it done for 2 firsts and 2 seconds, but I think it's probably going to take you 3 firsts.
Wow. That's a pretty steep price for a bet on those guys. Right. And I suppose if you are a contending team, you're right on the edge of championships, you're expecting those future picks to hopefully be 11s or 12s in your round, and you need one piece, and you're in love with one of these receivers, it might be worth that kind of price. But that is an awful lot to pay for, Mekhi Lemon, if that's
right.
who you're going to take at 4 once you've done this sort of massive deal.
I think it's easier to move from one of those wide receiver spots up to get Jeremiah Love, actually, only because a lot of people follow the same philosophy of not wanting to start their rebuild with running backs. They want to get to one of those wide receivers. And so maybe they're willing to make that move for just a 2027 first.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes. I think if you've got a pick that someone really values on the happy side of those cliffs we were just talking about moving up, I think is a fairly straightforward exercise if you're willing to pay the price. But if you're on the wrong side of that, moving up is going to be a challenge, right. An expensive, arduous challenge. And you may not like what you get in the end once you've done that.
Absolutely.
We're not going to do the second round, but if those are our 12, who are you kind of eyeing at the top of that second round if you are up at 201, 2 or 3?
Yeah, I mean, it's like I think Ty Simpson will be somewhere in there. Jonah Coleman will be somebody that's a potentially. I wouldn't be surprised if Elijah Surratt, especially if he gets paired up with Mendoza in Las Vegas, then he moves up into that range. And then you start looking at some of the tight ends, Max Clare, Stowers out of Vanderbilt, that group of players.
Heath, thanks so much for joining me today. This has been a lot of fun. I hope you've enjoyed this as well, going through a little differently, not just debating the players, but debating the choices. Any final words of wisdom for the people, or where they can find you over at CBS Sports and what you're working on here as the NFL draft hurdles towards us?
Yeah, we're ramping up our draft coverage over on FFT Dynasty. That comes out wherever you can find podcasts on Tuesdays and Fridays. We're on YouTube at 11:30 Eastern, so check that out. We'll have some great guests over the next couple of months to talk about where they rank these rookies. And if you listen to this podcast and you have the 8th or the 9th or the 10th pick and now you're depressed, first off, I'm sorry about that. Second off, I do think that there's a good chance that the value of those picks increases in the coming months as people start to decide, ooh, I really like this guy as the 5th wide receiver or the 2nd running back, or we got another quarterback drafted in round 1. I wouldn't be surprised. I'm not sure it'll be justified, but I think that value may increase before we get to rookie drafts for those later first-round picks, and at least make it easier to offload them if that's what you want to do.
Hey, thanks so much for joining us. Hopefully you all have enjoyed and learned something listening or watching today. If you did, please please subscribe. Please head over to Apple Podcasts and drop a positive review for us. That would help the show grow quite a bit. And we will be back next week with another outstanding guest and a little bit more Dynasty strategy. And that happens on Dynasty Compass. We'll see you then.